Here we have the Dockerfile for a simple image. It is based on Alpine, and we install a bash shell. With this line here, we configure the prompt of the bash shell using environment variables. And here we use the CMD instruction to automatically start a bash shell for containers based on this image. I want to show you a few things about environment variables and build arguments. So we're going to make this image a little bit more dynamic. It would be nice if we could control which shell we install and start at build time. So let's use a build arg here. I will call it my shell. And we will set a default to bash. This means I can now replace this occurrence of bash with $myshell. Now we need to change the other occurrence of bash down here. It would be ideal if we could just replace bash with myshell. But that doesn't work. At build time, Docker performs a substitution of the environment variables in a Dockerfile, but this is only supported for certain instructions. And it is not supported for CMD. You can find a list of supported instructions in the Docker manual about environment replacement. Here they are. One trick we can do is to wrap the environment variable in a command shell. But we also have to use the exec form to do that. So we're going to start a shell, use the -c flag to start another command, and here we can use the environment variable myshell. But this will happen at runtime. That means we need to add an environment variable for myshell. This should do the trick, and we can now build the image with Docker image build and use a build argument to define the shell that will be installed and started. I will install a C shell here instead of bash. Let's start a container to verify it worked. If we list the processes, we can indeed see that a C shell has been started. Let's say we need another environment variable here, and let's call it pkg. We need it because the package we need to install is actually not bash, but bash_x86. That's not really the case, but I'm trying to make an example. And because we want to keep the image dynamic, we should replace bash with $myshell. The problem here is that this wouldn't work. This would assign whatever is in the environment variable, myshell_x86 to pkg. What we need to do here is put curly brackets around myshell. This way it becomes clear where the name of the environment variable begins and where it ends. So pkg would hold whatever is in myshell, so bash in our case, and then x86. The curly brackets give us a few more options. For example, we can remove the default from the build argument myshell. And with curly brackets around myshell, followed by a colon dash, we can set a default in case myshell is empty or not set. So here, myshell would still be bash in case we don't supply a build argument. And there's more. Let's say we want to have another environment variable. Let's call it custom shell. And we want this environment variable to hold the value true in case that we pass in a build argument to set a shell. So we can use a $curly brackets myshell followed by a colon and then a plus sign. And now we can set a value for the case where my shell is set. So here, if we don't supply a build argument, custom shell would be empty. But for the cases where we set my shell via a build argument, either over the command line or in the Dockerfile, for example to C shell, custom shell would be true. My shell would be C shell, and pkg would be C shell underscore x86. So let's verify this actually works. I prepared a Docker Compose file, and we have two services in here. A service bash, where we build the image without any additional build arguments. And a service C shell, where we supply the my shell build argument and set it to C shell. And now we can run Docker Compose build to build the images. And then with Docker Compose run and the name of one of the services, let's start with bash. We can execute the env command to output all environment variables. And here we go. Custom shell is empty, my shell is bash, and pkg is bash underscore x86. Let's run the same command for the C shell service. And there we go. Custom shell is true, my shell is C shell, and pkg is C shell underscore x86.